My name is Damian Gordon. I'm a reggae and dancehall recording artist and songwriter from the poorest parish of Jamaica, Islington, St. Mary. Right? Growing up in Islington, St. Mary, my grandfather used to own a farm, right? So the farm was located about 4 miles from the family home, right? Every morning, my grandfather used to wake up around 5 a.m. in the morning, set out to his farm to work the farm until around 5 p.m. in the evening he would come home, right? So my grandfather was a retired police officer, and he started farming after he retired full time. All right, so he used to plant like produce such as bananas, plantain, sweet potato, Irish potato, yam, and coconuts, right? So he had like about 4 hectares of land filled with coconut. So he would farm throughout in and around the coconut trees, right? And he will also plant like pumpkins, right? So my grandmother, she used to take the farm produce to the market, right, and sell those produce, and that's how they feed their family, right? So my grandmother and my grandfather, they were entrepreneurs without even knowing what the word entrepreneur means, right? So growing up in a farm community, I used to on weekends go to my grandfather's farm and assist my grandfather on the farm. So my grandfather used to have cattle on the farm. So me and my cousin, we used to take those cattle and take them down by the river, which is at the bottom of the farm. Below, and the farm is on a hilly terrain, right? So when we would take those cattle to the river, which is located below the farm, it would be very difficult to climb the hill to go back to the top of the farm where our grandfather would do most of the planting, right? So what we would normally do is we normally have ropes around the cows. So we would hold on to the rope and have the cows pull us over the hill, right? And during that time, whenever the cows were having calves, we would also milk the cows, right? So you could say we were cowboys, right? Even though we are not from Texas or we are not from America or any one of those country states, we didn't have guns, we didn't have horses, but we were born and bred in the country of Jamaica. We were raising cows, so technically speaking, we were cowboys, right? So during that time, my grandfather used to prepare produce on the weekends for my grandmother to take to the market, right? So we would go there and assist with gathering those produce, put them together at the top of the farm, close to the main road, where the vehicle would come on Wednesdays and pick up those produce in order to head into Kingston with my grandmother for her to sell those produce. So while we were there on weekends gathering those produce, right, we had to pick like coconuts off the tree. So what we would do, we would pretend to be goalkeepers, right? So when one person is picking the coconut, one person is standing below trying to stop the coconut from rolling all the way down to the bottom of the hill, because if they do, we would have to go down there and gather them, and it will be hell to take them all the way back up at the top of the hill, right? So sometimes we would have to go to the bottom of the hill because that's where some of the bananas and plantains are and pineapple, right? So we had no choice. We had to go down there, pick them up, put them on our heads, right? Put them in bags, and we have to make our way up to the top of the hill. So on the farm, we had to work really, really hard. We didn't have it easy, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. No matter what your struggles are in life, always be consistent, always persevere, and you will make it through, right? So growing up, I used to have goats that I was responsible for. I used to raise chickens. I used to raise pigs, right? So in the mornings, I would wake up like around 6 a.m. in the morning. I have school 8 a.m. So my duty, I would have to lead the herd of goats probably around 15 minutes to 20 minutes away from where we live to the pasture so that they could feed, right? So every morning before school and on weekends, I had to lead the herd of goats, sometimes 15, 20 goats. I have to lead them out to the pasture. We have ropes on them. I had to tie them, leave them there for the entire day for them to feed. So sometimes I would take my slingshot, because we would make makeshift slingshot, and I would take my slingshot and shoot birds along the way, hunt birds, wild doves along the way. Growing up in the countryside, it was very interesting, right? So on Wednesday, because my grandmother, she used to go to market, after we prepare those ground provisions and all the provisions for her, right, we had to wake up like about 5 a.m. Wednesday morning, go to the farm, load all those provisions up on the vehicle so that they could head out into Kingston, right? So sometimes what we would do when we are preparing provisions for our grandmother to go to the market, sometimes the provision that my grandfather produced wasn't enough, so we had to outsource produce from other farmers in and around the community, right? So sometimes we have to walk like around 15 miles with donkeys, right, to a place they call woodland, right? So woodland is well above sea level, and it's a lot of hilly terrain along with ditch, right? So one false move and that's the end of you. You will fall over a steep ditch and you will be dead, right? So going to woodland was no joke. You have to be very fit, you have to be strong, right? And you have to have a lot of endurance because it's a lot of hilly terrain. Sometimes we would be coming from woodland and the rain start falling, so the track is slippery, right? You have to be very, very careful. Always remember, when things seems impossible, the impossible can always become possible, right? And sometimes we had to go to another place by the name of Pond, right, where we would walk probably around 7 to 8 miles away from where we live, along with donkey, to get provision to take home for our grandmother to take to the market. Sometimes when we're at fun and the hamper for the donkey is loaded and it can't hold anything else, now my head becomes an hamper and my cousin's head becomes an hamper, because whatever is left, we have to put it on our head and we have to start walking with it about 7 miles to take out. Because if we don't do that, we will have to make another trip, which we would have to do close to 28 miles walking to and from for that entire day, right? So sometime walking back from Pan, I would have like a big bunch of banana weighing probably around 15 pounds, 10 to 15 pounds on my head, walking 7 miles. Sometimes it gets so heavy, you know, tears run down my eyes. But what? We need that banana because my grandmother needed to go to market in order to sell it to finance the family. So sometimes I feel like throwing it over a cliff. But if I do that, when I reach home without that banana, I'll get a whooping. And, you know, I had to just endure, I had to suck it up, I had to be strong, and eventually I reach home with that bunch of banana on my head. No matter what the circumstances, carry your heavy load, carry your burden step by step, day by day. With all being said, you know, that's typically a country boy and a farm boy, if you will, right? So growing up wasn't easy, right? But I enjoyed every moment of it because it helped shape me, mold me into what I am today, giving me that sense of determination and dedication to whatever I do, and endurance. So I wouldn't trade it for the world. All that struggle, all that hard work, little did I know that my grandmother and my grandfather was actually teaching me how to become an entrepreneur, which would prove useful in my adult years. Going to primary school, after I finished putting the herd of goat to the pasture, I had to head out to school to reach school by 8 a.m. in the morning. So I can remember distinctively coming back from a summer holiday. A teacher gave us a summer assignment to write a composition. After I turned in my composition, the teacher looked at me and said that this is the best composition of the class. So something went off into my head because I knew right then and there that I had the ability to write, right? So during my primary school years, at the age of around 7, my mom, she used to live in the Bahamas. So she would send toys, and I can remember she would always send a keyboard. Until this day, however, I can't play the keyboard, but that instrument contributed to steering me in the direction of music. And my grandfather, every time he would come home from the farm, he had a guitar, an acoustic guitar that he would strum and play, and I would be there listening, right? He couldn't play it very well, but he was playing it and he was singing, right? So then and there I knew that music was around me and I had to do something musical. So always continue to take a step further, right? So growing up in that community, Islington St. Mary, home to reggae superstar Capleton, we used to have a dance hall where sound system used to come and play music. So music was all around me. I grew up around music. So there was no escaping it. So going to high school, I started going next door to my friend Dwayne's house, who had a stereo with a microphone. Right, so he used to play like Biggie Smalls on the stereo, and he had some instrumental. Right, so we used to freestyle, listening to those instrumental, and started freestyling. So after doing those freestyle, I met a friend in high school who was a DJ on a sound system, who I traveled on the bus probably around 7 to 8 miles away from where I live to a neighboring community, right, to collect a cassette filled with instrumental, because back in those days we didn't have MP3, we didn't have Bluetooth, we didn't have none of that stuff. We had CDs and we had cassette, right? So I went and collected a cassette tape filled with instrumental, right? So we would play those cassettes with the instrumental, and we would start freestyling, and I would listen to the cassette and started writing songs. So after writing song, I link up with one of my friends next door by the name of Birdie, where we used to sit down, we used to cook and eat, and we used to listen to Tupac Shakur and BMX, because he was a big Tupac fan. So he had all the latest Tupac album, all Tupac CDs, he had it. So we used to sit down, listen to Tupac, BMX, and write songs. So he wanted to be a rapper like Tupac, and I was a reggae and dancehall singer. So we would collaborate, we would write songs, we would sit down, listen to music all day on the weekends after I finish all my chores, and we would be there writing music and singing and having fun. So once we started doing that, right, we used to go around to the neighboring talent show, me and Birdie, and started performing our songs, and the crowd loved what we were doing. So I realized that some community artists started copying my lyrics to my songs. So then and there I started look, and I started saying, hey, if I am doing something that someone is copying, clearly I am doing something good. Okay, so I went further into pursuing music by going to recording studios in and around the community and outside of the community, saving my lunch money that I got for school to pay studio time in order to do demo tape. Right, so I started doing my demo tapes, right, and I was like, I need to get those tapes into the hands of some music producers. So I started checking the telephone directory, getting the telephone of recording studio, calling them up, trying to find out how I can get them my demo tape. Some of them were saying that I would have to come into Kingston. Some of them were saying they are not looking for anyone. And pretty much I was getting the running around. Always remember, when you think you can't go any further, there's always something left in the tank, and there's always a step further that you can go. So anyway, after finish high school, I went on to do a 2-year business course. And after finishing the 2-year business course, I signed up with the Department of Correctional Services, DCS, in Jamaica to become a correctional officer. So after completing my training as a correctional officer, I had to relocate to Kingston because I was stationed at the maximum facility prison in Kingston, formerly known as GP, now known as Tower Street Adult Correctional Center. So I had to relocate to Kingston, and after relocating to Kingston, I later learned that I have a cousin who was making beats. So I link up with that cousin by the name of Dario, aka Twin City, who was making beats as a hobby on his computer. So I started recording on my cousin's beat, right? And I recorded an independent album by the name of Suffer Me, the first album that I ever recorded, right? And after which, right, I decided that I'm gonna try and get the music out, right? So I started going to various record studio with my demo tapes, you know, trying to get in contact with producers, and I was getting the runaround, right? So I remember this one time I linked up with an artist from my community by the name of La Lumba, who was affiliated with reggae superstar Capleton. So me and La Lumba went to a record label by the name of Fiwi Music, owned by reggae singer Yogi, who I think is related to Barry Salmon. So La Lumba took me to the studio Fiwi Music in Barbican, and the producer wasn't there, but I think Len Hammond was there, right? And they told me to come back, right? So I was continuing to get a lot of runaround, but that wouldn't deter me, because at the end of the day, I'm used to carrying heavy load. I'm used to being persistent, right? So even though there were a lot of setbacks, no matter what setback you have in life, always carry your burden, carry your heavy load step by step, right, until you reach your destination, right? So I decided that, you know what, I'm gonna try and go independent, try and start putting out my own stuff. So my girlfriend at the time introduced me to MySpace, right? So I started uploading the album on MySpace, started doing a lot of research on how to promote and market music, and CR3 Records was born. So along with myself and my cousin, I was a recording artist on our independent label, but my duty as well was to market the music and distribute the music for the label. Now my cousin, Twin City, he was in charge of making beats and producing the songs, as well as all the engineering work and all that stuff, right? So after doing all that for years, we put out our music, another album by the name of Shantytown, right, which was uploaded to iTunes and all leading online stores. Yeah. So even though we weren't making a ton load of money, but just the fact that my music is touching people worldwide, that was success enough for me, right? So my song was popping up all over the world, in Japan, Lithuania, and all those places on iTunes top 100 charts, right? So even though we didn't have that huge financial support, the music itself was going places. So I decided to do a YouTube series by the name of My Songbook, because I had a box filled with song lyrics. So I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna just open up the box and just sing some of the lyrics on YouTube as is, and let the viewers be the judge. However, by doing that, I caught the attention of a EDM artist by the name of The Range, who emailed me and saying that he heard one of my songs and he would like to do a sample for his album. So then and there, I said, okay. So we worked out a deal, and The Range did a song by the name of 1834 on his album Potential, right? So after doing that, The Range reached out to me and said, hey, he's going to do a documentary for the album and he would like me to be a part of it. So I was like, okay. So The Range sent out his director by the name of Daniel Kaufman, who worked with persons like The Game, Waka Flocka, and many more on the international scene. So Daniel came out, right, and filmed my portion of the documentary, which is titled Superimpose the Making of The Range album Potential, right, which was featured on film festival in Europe and won awards, and was released on YouTube, which is now available on YouTube, right? So after having those achievements, I knew that music, I was destined to do music, right? So after doing all that, in 2019, during COVID, I was going through some personal issues, right? Where my baby mom took my son at the age of around 7, right? While I was being petitioned to come to the US. So I was kind of in a dark place and a dark stage at that time. So I decided to put the brakes on music. So I didn't record any songs. I wasn't writing that much, right? And on top of all that, she decided to take me to court for property, right? So at the end of the day, when all that stuff is going on, I had to pull back until my headspace and everything was cleared. So in 2023, I migrated from Jamaica, come to the USA along with my son, right? Even though his mom didn't want to send over the relevant documents in order for the petition to go through. However, everything worked out and myself and my son, we moved to the US. Always remember, the hotter the battle, sweeter the victory. So while living in the US, having experience in security, working for 20 years in the Department of Correctional Services, I decided what best place to start but work in security. So I did my license and started working as a security guard. So while working as a security guard, I was promoted to supervisor and rover, which I drive around the security vehicle in the complex. Now, working security guard is very demanding, and it's not that best as it relates to pay, and it is very time consuming because most of the time you're at work and you don't get time to spend with your family. So while at work, riding around in the rover vehicle throughout the community, I would stop at the cul-de-sac and like write 2 lines of a song, and then by the end of my shift I would have a complete song. So I was like, music is calling me, so why not go back into music? So I had this friend who was a correctional officer who died by the name of Divine. He said to me one point in time that he was writing songs and he submitted them to some guys in Nashville, and one of his songs went on an album. So I was like, what best place to start but start with writing country songs in memory of my friend Divine who passed away, you know, as a way of honoring him and carrying on the work that he started or the vision that he had. So always continue to take a step further, right? So growing up, I used to watch a lot of country western movie, as well as listening to Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, Elvis Presley, right? So I always remember watching the movie, they always talk about the oak tree, the plains, the bayou, and all that stuff. So after doing some research, I realized that love songs tend to get better reception than other country songs. So I decided that I'm going to start off with writing a love song. So doing the security guard job wasn't comfortable doing it. I wanted this one song which could deliver me from all that. So I started thinking, I started writing down, you know, stuff that I wanted to include it as it relates to, you know, the bayou, right, barn, all that stuff, because I wanted to depict country in the song. I want the song to reflect love in the country, you know. So I started putting down some pointers how I want to write it. So the song was very deliberate, right? So I started writing it, and after finishing writing the lyrics, it was time to reach out to some people in Nashville in order to have the song recorded. So I started researching some companies in Nashville, and Beard Music Group stood out to me, and I liked the work that they were doing. So I sent over the song lyrics to them, and you know, they liked it and started working on it after I paid them to do so. However, the fact that I already have a record label, I'm like, I'm not gonna do a demo, because I want something that is finished, a finished product, that in the event that I can't get a publishing deal, I can just go ahead and release it myself, independent. So even though it costs more money, I went ahead and have them produce a complete song, a master. So while the engineer was working on the song, I realized they loved the song. They were having a lot of fun recording it along with the singer. However, I signed a contract with them, which is a NDA contract. So I can't use the singer's name and image. I can't mention anything about the producers or none of that. Anyway, the song was completed, and I was doing some research trying to find out how to get a publishing deal. I was making phone calls. I was trying to reach out to publishers, right? I even had one interview with a publisher from Concord Records who said he loved the song. I painted the words with the song, and he could imagine everything that the song was saying, the way in which I painted the words. Because when I'm writing songs, I like to use figures of speech like metaphor, simile, right, and imagery. Those are my 3 key figures of speech that I like to include in my songs. Because I have certificate in English language, so I have a fair understanding how to use figures of speech. And as a writer, you have to know how to use figures of speech. So the publisher took a copy of the song, and I didn't hear from him since. So I was tired, back in the same spot again where I started, tired of getting the running around, right? And I had a friend by the name of Nigel who used to own an independent record label by the name of Zigludan Records, who used to work with the likes of Vybz Kartel, Black Rhino, Pascomex, and many more Jamaican superstars. Right? So through him, I was featured on a production by the name of Garrison Code with the likes of Vybz Kartel, with a song by the name of Foreign. Anyway, Nigel heard the song, loved the song, and said, hey, you should release the song independent because you already have your label. And if the song goes big, you would be in control of the master, right? So I made another friend listen to the song who told me that when his wife heard the song, his wife started crying because the song bring back memory, right? I have my aunt listen to the song, and she's like, wow, this is a very good song. I can see, like Kane Brown, I can see those big superstars singing this song. This song is a standalone song. So with all those reviews, I'm like, you know what? Let me figure out a way in which I can release this song independently. So I went ahead and copyright the song, copyright the lyrics, right? And went to DistroKid, signed up with DistroKid, created an artwork, created a mystery name for the song because I couldn't use the name of the singer because of the NDA agreement. So I had to use a mystery name. And I didn't have the finance in order to reach out to the singer in order to cut a deal where I could use his name and image. Anyway, song was out, released in October 2023, and the song is out on iTunes, our leading online store, Country Lovers by Mystery Country Singer, written by Damian Gordon. No matter what the circumstances, carry your heavy load, carry your burden step by step, day by day, in person, me. However, with all that being said, I'm looking to you for your support and your help in order to get this song to where it needs to be. You can do that by checking out the link in the description, downloading the song, leave your reviews, share it with your friends and family, and help my story to get out. Right, so with all being said, you have to be determined in whatever you do. Right, the music industry is very guarded, and it's not about how talented you are, it's about who you know and how much money you're willing to spend. That's the harsh reality. When you look at like American Idol and all those major shows, there are hundreds of very talented people passing through every season, but how many of them make it to stardom? So clearly it's not about talent, but at the end of the day, if you are determined and if you decide to put in the work to endure, even when it seems impossible, even when you feel like giving up, because yeah, at times I feel like giving up. At times I'm like, why am I wasting my time? I could be using my time doing something else. I could be on the beach sitting down having fun. I could be at a party. So why am I even here right now recording this video? But you know what? It's all about the passion for music, the passion for writing songs, and the feeling I get when someone email me and say, hey, your music changed my life. So help me to change lives by supporting my music. Thank you. Boom.
Country love is high in the sky. Country love, let it fly. Country lovers on the bayou, me and you under the oak tree.